What is up, everyone? Welcome. Happy Thursday. It's almost Friday. Welcome to Behind the Layers podcast. I am Kara Christensen. I am a beauty, health, and fitness professional in the industry, and Behind the Layers is catered towards peeling back all the layers of the truths and the myths behind the beauty, health, and fitness industry. All of the things that work, that don't work, the fads, the doctors' studies that let us know. We're going to go through some product reviews and all sorts of fun stuff on here to uncover what is actually good for us and what is not. And today's topic is a sensitive but a very big one, and it plagues so many people. It doesn't have to be addiction to drugs, or just alcohol. It is addiction to anything. There are people with all sorts of addictions that they are just trying to get better and live their best lives. And this is going to be the podcast for you. This is uncovering how to beat any addiction in 9 days by two different doctors that do this on a daily basis and have had much success. They have best-selling books, and they are nonetheless going to be showing us and talking to us today about how to do that. What are the guidelines to beat any addiction in 9 days? So we're going to go ahead and get into that. Here we go. And all of the videos that I reference and all of the facts and the things that I share with you all, you can find them under my playlist, and it will say podcast info videos. So it's all about the info from the podcasts. You can find it there. And I hope that you find some great information that can help leading you to living your best life from the inside out. So I'm sorry over there on Instagram, I forgot to hit go live for you guys. So you guys are all just catching up. Hi, Instagram. I am so sorry I forgot to go live there. So I've already been talking. We're talking about our new topic today, and that is how to beat any addiction in 9 days. What are the guidelines? And these are two different doctors who do this on a daily basis. One of them is a best-selling author, and they're going to be talking to us about those steps to take to beat addiction and to start living your healthiest life from the inside out. And also for people that maybe you don't have an addiction, but you're just trying to level up your game in your business. Maybe you have a business, you own a business, you run a business, or you're just trying to create a business or a healthier lifestyle for you, an approach to more success in whatever it is that you do. So he's going to kind of lay out the guidelines. This isn't just about addiction. It's a big part about how addicts can also learn to change their mindset, to change their lives, to change their future. And it all starts in his 9-step program. And we're going to go through that right now. And that includes food addiction, you guys. Food addiction is a thing. It is definitely a thing. And those of you that are addicted to food know exactly what I'm talking about. I used to be that too. And I stumbled across these two doctors, and I really liked the message and the approach, and I felt like it is something that you can get started doing immediately. So for those of you that are all about learning to self-heal and know that it can be done with a little bit of will and leaving some power. Thanks. Hey, Bo, putting a little power behind what these doctors say and just giving it a solid go, then then I know that you can make those changes. So here we go. Let's dive in.
So for many people, the first thing they do in the morning is that they practice stress. They get up, whether it's the news or emails or social media, in what I consider to be a very important time of the day, they allow the environment to start conditioning their mind, and then that conditions their body. Certainly that's the way I see it. And in a view of what we've been talking about so far, of course, we've mentioned addictions, which are rife these days. How important to you is the first part of the day when someone has woken up Is that a critical part of the day where people have to be very intentional, or can they do some of the work that you promote later on? Or do you think first thing in the morning is a very important part of the day?
Interesting.
I'm going to be really careful about this. I think there's two times the door to the subconscious mind opens up. When we wake up in the morning and we go to bed at night. And it's simple brain chemistry and simple physiology. We have a circadian rhythm. As soon as there's light, our body has been pretty much programmed that we begin to release serotonin and different chemicals that kind of wake us up. So our brain waves go from delta to theta to alpha to beta. And you kind of slide up this way, and then you're back to conscious awareness, local in space and time. When you go to bed at night, you go from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and you slide down. Now, if you're stressed, you can't stop thinking. You stay in beta, and your thinking actually is arousing the body because you're thinking about your problems. You can't slide down, right? So those 2 points in the day, when we wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, when alpha, or our analytical facilities are suppressed, we're in theta, we're in a hypnotic state. Mm-hmm. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open. What separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. So as you suppress analytical facilities, you can program anybody to do anything. So then what really happens for most people before they even reach for their cell phone, and by the way, the statistics are 86% of the people in the Western world, first thing they do is they reach for the cell phone and they connect to everything that's known.
And why is that a problem?
Well, I would never tell people how to think, but I would give them information to cause them to think. So the device is reminding them of things that are known. And every person, every object, everything, every place is mapped neurologically in our brain because we've experienced it. And then we have an emotion associated with our coworker,
Joseph.
with our boss, with our ex, with our whoever. And so the moment we start responding, now we start feeling the same way. Now the environment is actually controlling the person's feelings and thoughts.
Yeah.
And anything that controls the way we feel and the way we think, we're victims to. So something's programming us to think and feel a certain way. There's nothing wrong with that. You should check your text, and do whatever you need to do. But the first thing in the morning, if the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is open, why don't we program a new behavior? Why don't we rehearse a different way of being with our children, with our spouse, in our Zoom meetings, when we're...
I mean, he's just rattling off things that he's got going on in his life, but I think it's a powerful message. He's saying when your subconscious mind is open. So he's saying, like, right when you get up, you are still between your conscious and your subconscious mind. The door's still open. So if you want to feed into the space where the darkness lives, where you want to cleanse that space out while the door's still open before you get started in your day, and that door's closed and all you're focused on is all of the immediate surface level things. You want to take that time right when you get up to focus on the inward part. Don't, like, the inward part of yourself. Don't just start cramming all the surface level stuff back in. You need to really get into, what are your intentions? Who do you want to be? How are you going to get there? This is the space where you can actually do the work while you're awake. It's where your conscious mind gets to involve itself with your subconscious mind, which is a really powerful space to be. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the 5 a.m. Or what is it called? It's the success of the 5 a.m.ers, which is like, I think maybe Trump or some other, I don't know, business people have all come together and they've created this 5 a.m. thing saying, that if you get up at 5 a.m., you get productive, and here's the steps that you do it. You get your workout in to start stimulating your mind. You start doing some business. You take some time, quiet time when you first get up. Then you do your exercise. Then you do your business. I have to look into it. Don't quote me on those things. I have to look into the sequence, but it is how you can start is this way that people that have super successful lives start their day. And I actually saw a few people that have gone through this, like, they're like, let me just give this a go. And it really was helpful in working and how that program does work for your mental, for your physical, just for every part of your life is starting like that. So he's kind of in that space of saying, if you have a tendency to be addicted to, you need that drink, you need those cigarettes, you need that fix, you need that food, whatever the addiction is, start the change from within when you're in that subconscious space, which you don't really get to be in unless you're sleeping most of the time. But when you first get up in the morning, or maybe when you're drowsy and getting ready for bed and you're like starting to drift off, that's the space that he's talking about. And these two doctors both agree with this method. So I thought it was very important to share. And maybe that's something that could help you, or maybe someone that you love. Let's take a listen. Can I start from here? No. I gotta switch screens. There we go.
Alone when we're in traffic. Is there a better way to evolve our experience? So if you're truly in the game of evolution, you're truly in the game, like one lifetime, one day. What am I working on today?
Thanks, Bo.
Can I respond
Good morning.
a different way to this person? Can I think this way instead of that way? Let me be conscious of my unconscious thoughts. Let me not be in a habit. Let me stay away from certain emotions. Let me practice feeling these emotions, see if I can maintain it. Now you're in the game. You're out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field. So it actually happens even before the cell phone. Because what most people do is they wake up and the first thing they do is the brain is a record of the past. They think of their problems.
That's true.
And those problems are just memories that are etched in the brain that are connected to certain people and objects at certain times and places. The moment they think of their problems, they're thinking in the past. Then when they think about their problems and they feel unhappy, now their body's in the past. And if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, wow. And then the emotion that's associated to it is now the body's in the past, because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. Now here's the problem.
He talks real fast, so I do have to like break it down a little bit. But he's saying, kind of like the old saying of, what you think is what you are, or what you think is what you'll be. Like if you don't think you can, you won't, type of thing. Like your mind being connected to your physical, being connected to your actions, being connected to your life. So, the power of thought, and if you believe in the power of thought, like if you talk yourself out of something, chances are you're not gonna do it. He's saying if you've got to put yourself in a mindset like you are capable, you can do it, and keep your space there to where it will push you forward, even if you still have that doubt, even if you don't feel like that may be true, then still push forward and see what you can make of it, but leading with a positive measure rather than putting all of the doubt that will bring you down and surely, you know, take you back from moving yourself forward and out of the space that you don't want to be in.
If you can't think greater than how you feel,
Aw, thanks, Hal.
and you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and you understand that feelings and emotions are a record of the past, then you're thinking in the past, and your life will stay the same.
Yeah.
Because you're living in the past.
So I've always been a fan of morning routines, personally. For me, I've discovered when I have some intentional time to myself in the morning, and when I don't, I'm a different person. I show up differently. My productivity, the way I am with my wife or my kids is completely different. So I've learned, and I'm now 44 at this age, I know mornings are very important for me. And sure, could I do the same thing at lunchtime or later on? Well, technically I could, but I never find time, number one. Number two, I don't think it's as powerful later because I feel first thing in the morning, I'm priming myself to be a certain way for that day.
This is important.
And actually, since our first conversation, Dr. Joe, I went on your website and I downloaded some of your meditations. And I've been doing one most mornings. It's a 23-minute meditation. And I've got to say, my favorite bit in the meditation is about 17 or 18 minutes in, where you say something to the effect of, and I don't want to misspeak for your words, but it's something about now's the time to remind yourself of the feelings you don't want to feel. Remind yourself of how you do want to show up. I love that bit, because each time, for me, it's like, yeah, okay, I don't want to be like this today. And if and when this happens, this is how I want to show up. This is how I want to be. So first of all, I want to say
Read
thank
the
you, because
comments better here.
it's been...
There we
It's this
go.
idea that you spoke about last time, mental rehearsal. You know, we have no problem
Good job, Bo.
thinking about athletes rehearsing how they're going to perform. We have no problem thinking that, of course, an actor, if they want to play a part a certain way, they're going to rehearse. They're going to keep rehearsing until they're able to do it. Yet, most of us don't really apply that in our own life. We don't think, yeah, I need to be rehearsing for the person I want to be in my own life.
Yeah. The game of life.
The game of life, the most important
Yeah,
game.
the most important game. Well, 95% of who we are is a set of memorized behaviors, automatic emotional responses, unconscious habits, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions that are running pretty much like a computer program. They're automatic, right? So you can think positively all you want. You can say, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm free, I'm worthy. And your body's saying, no, you're not. You're miserable, right?
This
so
is the part I'm talking
it makes
about.
sense that there's got to be an unlearning process. And we got to stay conscious of our unconscious thoughts that slip by our awareness unnoticed. We got to watch how we speak. We got to observe how we act. We got to pay attention to the way we're feeling, and we have to become so conscious of those unconscious states of mind and body that we don't go unconscious in our waking day. Because how you think, how you act, and how you feel is your personality, and your personality creates your personal reality. So if you're thinking the same way, you're acting the same way, and you're feeling the same way, nothing's going to change in your life, right? So then the unlearning process is as valuable as the relearning process. The breaking the habit of the old self has to happen before you reinvent a new self.
If you enjoyed this video, I think you are really going to enjoy my new book, Happy Minds.
I mean, that book does look like the book.
Click the link in the description box below.
You got to prune synaptic connections before you sprout new connections. You got to unfire and unwire before you refire and rewire. You got to deprogram and then reprogram.
So how do you unlearn? Because I guess when we think about addiction, for many of us, this is just living in the past. We're just repeating behaviors that we've done in the past that made us change our state, that gave us that dopamine boost. I get you can meditate, you can feel that elevated emotion with a very, very high degree of emotional intensity. But how do you go about becoming conscious and unlearning those previous patterns?
It's trial and error. You got to go out. You got to go out into life and try it out. Okay, I've changed my internal state. You could have a great meditation. You can connect. Your heart could open. This happened to me. You could open your heart. You could be amazing. You feel like the day is invincible. And you get up, and then the rest of your day, you're unconscious. The 15 hours of your day. So you're going to weigh 1 hour of being in a different state of being against 15 hours of you being unhappy and rushing and in a program. So then, how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's called change. How many times do we have to go unconscious to the point where we no longer go unconscious and we stay conscious? That's the moment of change. Now, if you're truly out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field, and this happens to a lot of people in our work. They say, you know, I really believe that this is the truth. I really believe that you could heal yourself. I really believe you could change your life. I've seen the testimonials. I just never believed that it could happen to me. Now, this is a big moment. Now you're really stepping on the playing field. So a person who starts doing their work, they're not interested in healing. The person who's truly interested in this work, they understand that the only way they can heal is that they have to change. They're not saying, I'm going to wait for my wealth or my healing to happen in order for me to feel grateful and be joyful in life. They're saying, if I feel grateful, my healing's going to begin, right? If I feel more whole, then there should be some change in my gene expression. So they've studied the content, they've studied the information, and now it becomes extremely practical. So they may have a great meditation, and we've seen this happen to many people. They sleep better, they have less pain, they have more energy, but their blood values never change. Now, they don't say, oh, I feel better, but I'm failing, this doesn't work. They say, what is it about me that's stopping this from completely healing? Okay, how am I? in my waking day? The moment you begin to ask that question, you turn on the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe is the seat of your conscience. Now, the moment you start looking at the end of your day, how did I do? This is such an important question. How did I do today? Did I fall from grace? When did I lose it? And who did I lose it with? If I had another opportunity, how would I do it differently? They'll tell you, I've seen them stand on the stage and tell their story and say, I had to start really watching myself in my life, how I was emotionally responding to my ex, how.
So that's interesting. Bo, when you were going through your journey, did you find that you were also doing this? Like, did you have to kind of take a step back and look at yourself and observe yourself almost like from the outside in, like you're watching your own show of you? Are you proud of that person? Would you have handled it differently? How do you, at what point when you started to think about having a drink, what point in your day and what were you doing? I think it's a lot of self-reflection that we not that we intentionally all the time turn our back from, but I feel like it's something that, we're so busy in our days that we don't stop to look inward as much as we should, and especially if you're dealing with addiction, this is so important. I feel like looking at, okay, what time of my day did I start to feel this way? What was I doing? Who was I talking with? What situation was present? Was it something that I could have avoided? Was it something that I could, you know, can change in the future? How did I approach that? Did I approach it with the best mindset? Could I have handled it differently? Did I set myself off when I could have handled it differently? And that's what put me in the space to wanting to lean into the addiction part, whether it's food or alcohol or drugs. Is that the point of my day? And how can I handle it differently next time? Did you find yourself doing any of those things when you were going through your sobriety? I feel like it's important to do in any case. He talks a lot about this, but he also talks about not just overcoming your any addiction in 9 days. If you put these things in motion, these like lifestyle changes in motion, he's saying not only can you pass your addiction, but if you continue on with this, or maybe you don't even have an addiction, maybe you have an addiction to anger, you got anger problems, and it affects the way that you work with your employees or employer or whatever the situation. This is a mindset of how can you level up? How can you become the greatest version of you to where you're going to start receiving all of that positive energy back in rewards in your life? Like what you're putting out, how do you change what you're putting out? Where do you start? How do you start changing your mindset? And I think this is so important of what he's saying is when your mind is first cracking open in the day, right when you're waking up and you're still in that subconscious state where you can connect the two worlds, your waking state, your subconscious state, your sleep state, you're still in the very open space instead of pulling in all those negative thoughts. Oh my gosh, my day's going to be filled with this. Oh, I got to run into so and so. Oh, this is what's happening on the news. Instead of starting your day with all of the negative things that keep you in that space, that have gotten you to where you are, to where you're unhappy, to where you feel like you need a cigarette or you need a drink or you need to smoke that weed or you got to do some drugs to get you out of that space. He's saying, let's start with connecting with who you are inside and what's causing these root issues and start feeding that person a little bit more care and positivity and saying, hey, you know what? You are worthy of a better life. You can do this. We got this. It's you having a conversation with yourself, gaming yourself up, saying, you know what, bro, today, this person who usually sets me off, I'm going to approach it a little different. I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to change the way I handle road rage. I'm going to change the way I handle this person that I just do not like. I'm going to try the kill them with kindness approach. I'm going to try and change these steps and see what it does for you. See how that energy, that shift in energy changes and comes back around in a way that you probably haven't felt in a long time, if ever, because you're so stuck in the ways of how you handle things and how you go about moving through your day that you don't think about how that conversation with yourself first thing in the morning, all that you let in, the negativity, getting on Facebook, getting on, all the social medias, checking things, all the sensory things that set you off. Oh, this person's traveling here. Oh, I'm not doing that well. Sending yourself into that negative space. Or, oh, now this is going on in the world. I turned on the news and of course it's a bunch of more crap going on, it's like feeding yourself into the positive space and starting your space there, but also having that moment with yourself to be like, you know what? Let me reevaluate yesterday. What happened? What went down yesterday? When was the moment that I was like got twisted and turned sideways? What made me go to that drink? What made me go to these things? Let me fix that today. Today I'm going to show up different for myself and work on that each day. I think that's pretty powerful. What'd you? Oh no, it's not scrolling down. Hold on, let me see what you said. I'll scroll down in a second, Bo. Let me start this back.
I was emotionally responding to my financial problems. I had to really, really pay attention to that. And that takes an enormous amount of energy and an enormous amount of awareness to stop the program, right? So you forget and you go, damn, I went unconscious there. Now, you didn't lose, you didn't fail. You just became conscious. Now, if you keep becoming so conscious of your unconscious states, you're outside the program. You're only in the program when you're unconscious.
Yeah.
The moment you're conscious, you can objectify your subjective self. So you can see yourself through the eyes of someone else. So the learning process comes from the mistake. The brain learns by mistakes and surprises. I've made enough of them in my life. It's just whether you're going to do it again.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. The brain learns by mistakes and surprises. I think that's pretty powerful. And I feel like that's true. Like, they say sometimes you got to go through the bad to learn the good. So you have that learning lesson. Sometimes people don't just hear it or see it from other people. They have to experience it themselves. But yeah, I'm reading what you were saying, Bo. Being dry from alcohol is like going to the gym and not doing anything, where being sober means that you're working on it, working on my thinking to change for the better. Yeah. I'm sorry, you guys. I'll try and figure out why it's not doing the scrolling thing. I have no idea. I'll have to figure that out later. I'm learning Akita is my surprise. Unlearning. Yeah, I'm sure unlearning. Because you're 17 years sober now, Bo? Was that the one you just got? Was that the coin you just got? Uh-huh. Aw, you're sweet, Bo. Thank you for the compliments. I appreciate that, you guys. So, so much. You do things pretty much the exact opposite of how you used to do things. Yeah. I feel like that's what this doctor's saying is you can't expect, what's that old saying? You can't expect to keep doing the same things and getting a different result. You have to just show up for yourself in a different way, and that's, hard to do. You have to literally have a sit down with yourself, a conversation. Quiet time in the morning is what they're suggesting. Meditating on who are you? Who do you want to show up to be today? Who would you be proud of meeting or being? Who is the most, influential person that you know or would like to be, and how do you be that person? It's like breaking down and being able to face all the bad parts about yourself to be able to change them into the good, and taking it step by step to do that. And it comes so simple, down like literally down to, all right, today instead of getting aggravated with this person who really gets on my nerves, I'm just going to take a couple deep breaths. I'm going to smile instead of be anger, and I'm going to change the dynamic and change the energy, and just see how that feeling makes you feel when it doesn't turn out to be something so toxic. I think that is a powerful place to start. You do still smoke cigs. Since 1973, it does help with stress, and I have limited it too. Well, I guess if you don't have two vices, right? So now you're down to one vice. So we got this one. If you want what you got, you'll do what you did. If you want change, you got to try something different. Yeah, that's so true. All right, you guys, I'm going to play the rest of what he's saying. These guys are so interesting.
To do it again, you're back in the habit, back in the routine. If
Just
you
like
say,
what you just said.
this is it,
Sorry, I'm back up a few seconds.
through the eyes of someone else. So the learning process comes from the mistake. The brain learns by mistakes and surprises. I've made enough of them in my life. It's just whether you're going to do it again.
Yeah.
You want to do it again, you're back in the habit, back in the routine. If you say, this is it, the next time that happens, I am not going to do that. Not for anybody else, but because those emotions actually, my response to that person or that circumstance is actually weakening the organism. Is that person, that circumstance worth it? So then it's evolution. It's evolution. The challenge then has to be met with a greater level of mind. Now, if you're just doing your meditation just because you want to please God or do the right thing or feel good about yourself, that's going to get stale after a while because it's just going to become another routine between your coffee and your shower and your emails and your drive to work, and people aren't present, right? So the familiar past, conditioning is based on the past, that thought and the feeling, but habituation is the programming them to predictable future. That's the known. So if you teach a person how to find the present moment, that's where the unknown exists. And that takes a lot of energy and a lot of awareness. And yet, if you practice it, the body literally will begin to respond to the mind. It's like training an animal. It finally relaxes. And when that occurs, your response to people and circumstances in your life will be different because you overcame yourself at the beginning of the day. So I'm an early morning guy just like you. I get up really early. Why? Because nobody bothers me.
What time?
4:30-ish, somewhere around there.
And what do you do?
I get in my think box.
Okay, so I felt like this was super interesting. I've never heard of people talk about what he's about to talk about, but just like I told you guys about the book, it's out there. I don't know. Have you guys heard of it? It's like the 5 a.m.ers, the successful 5 a.m.ers, people who get up at 5 a.m. and do this program where you're sitting, you kind of like, you don't have to meditate. I'm not talking about like becoming a Buddhist or anything. It's meditating you in the word of like, sit with yourself, sit like where you're not having all the distractions from your phone and you're in the TV and all of the things that are going on in the surface level life. Sit with you. If you're in a bad space and you know you have an addiction that you're trying to quit, you gotta look inward and say, what is it that you want to change? How do you want to change it? You got to sit and have those tough conversations with yourself in a space where you're able to hear it. And it's usually in that subconscious state of mind right when you wake up is what these doctors are saying or talking about. But how he does this is the part that I thought was pretty interesting. I've known many addicts in my life that have tried several different times and then they relapse and then they're trying to go back to do it again. So when I found this and I sent this out before to people and I felt like this was something attainable. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
What's the think box?
Well, okay, what am I doing today? But I'm not going to sit down and just jump into a meditation. What thoughts before I go into this meditation am I going to stay away from? Well, what circumstances, what things I can think about later that aren't that important to me? What emotions, what memories am I going to stay away from? If I go there, I know what that's going to do. Why am I doing this meditation? What am I going to be doing? How am I going to do it? So I just like anybody who does anything really well, you get in your think box and you organize what you're going to do.
Are you doing this in bed or are you having coffee first? Or?
I just get up, move around a little bit, do a few things, maybe write some notes down, because then I can assign meaning to the act. I can stay conscious when I'm in it.
So you do all this before your meditation? Okay.
Always. But then when I get in my play box, there's no thinking. I did all my thinking in my think box.
You did all your thinking in your think box. Is that also when sometimes we wake up and there's these kind of thoughts that are just popping up? Is you writing down a few things, is you processing them, a way of sort of quietening down the noise so that you can drop into meditation?
So let's say I have 10 Zoom meetings in one day. I look at my calendar and I go, okay, none of that, I'm going to get to all of that. This is not my time to think about the known. I know all this stuff is going to work out. I know how the Zoom meetings are going to go. Okay, but let me just make sure when I'm in these certain Zoom meetings that I'm leading with my heart and I'm being the person that I want to be as an example for my team. I want to make sure I'm communicating really clear.
Okay, so you hear what he said right there? Leading with his heart. He talks a lot about that in his studies. Leading with your heart is the only way. Like he talks about all the patients, the thousands of patients that he's seen that he's gotten sober and this program works. He's created this program because it works. And kind of like Dr. Chapman that I, constantly preaching about the languages of love, the 5 languages of love. And he created that book based on thousands of marriages and relationships that he's saved through this discovery of learning everybody has a love language. Same kind of thing for him. He's like, these are the 9 steps. These are the things that I know or that are tried and true. And people come to me and they're telling me, X, Y, and Z. It all kind of comes down to the same basis. And these are the ways to get you out of that space, like just a reset, kind of like how I talk about fasting and resetting. So this is the bread and butter of it.
Clearly, all that out of the way. Well, that's all the known stuff. But when I come to execute now, well, what am I going to do to open my heart today? Like what?
Okay, see, he said it again. What am I going to do to open my heart today? He said this is what I was getting at, and I totally forgot what I was trying to say just before this. But this is what he says. A lot of his clients that come to him, they say they're so stuck outside of their feelings. Like, I guess guys have this thing that they feel like they can't show emotion or deal with the emotions. They don't cry. And like, it's not tough to cry or things like that. They're so stuck with the wall between themselves and their heart and their emotions that they have forgotten that that's where the space is, where all the damage is, that you need to deal with it. And if you don't open that space up, then you're not going to be who you are. You're going to actually become a shell of yourself and not remember who you are, not remember that good person that you are, not remember that person that's behind there because you walled it all off, or not remember, how to get to that space. So a lot of what his work is opening up people to get and connect with their heart again and lead with their heart, and it will change your life. And he was like, being in that vulnerable space and knowing how your heart's feeling, don't push it away, don't shove it and put it under a rug or lock it away in a box. That's what gets you to addiction. That's what gets you to wanting the alcohol or drink or smoking those cigarettes or doing the things that you're addicted to every single day to have to do. If these are the things you want to stop, and and you want to move yourself into a higher realm, you want to level up your life and who you are, not just financially, but who you are as a person to all those around you. If you want to level up who you are while you're here, it still can make a difference in this world. This is how you do it. You got to connect with that heart, your heart chakra, and lead with your heart. You'll notice him say a lot about leading with his heart, and that's a big part of his message. And he's a man, and he is talking constantly about how men have that disconnect, and that's what he tries to go after and try to fix.
Really going to do? When I do the breath,
Sorry.
clearly I'll make time for this, that. Okay, I get all that out of the way. Well, that's all the known stuff. But when I come to execute now, well, what am I going to do to open my heart today? Like, what am I really going to do? When I do the breath to bring energy into my brain, what am I bringing? Like, where am I going to go to that? What do I want to experience? How do I do that? Let me just review that. Okay, then I'm going to open my focus. I'm going to go deep into nothing. I'm going to go as far as I can. And then when I get to that point, then I'm going to create. And when I create, this is what I'm going to create. So I'm not thinking in when I'm there, what should I create? I've already got that all worked out. I'm rehearsing. I'm getting clear on what I'm going to do. I'm getting clear on what I'm not going to do. I'm getting clear on how my last meditation was and how I want to evolve my next meditation. So then when I get to my play box, I'm not analyzing and thinking, because if I'm analyzing and thinking, I can't do it, right? So I get that worked out. If it takes me half an hour, I allow for 2 hours for myself. If it takes me half an hour to get very clear, and then sometimes there's disturbing things that I have to get through because there's meetings and stuff like that, but I just go, that is all always going to work out. This is you. This is your time.
It's interesting, Dr. Joe, that for many of us, for many people, meditation is almost like your pre-day ritual, right? So you meditate to prime yourself for your day, how you're going to be. But when you talk about your morning routine, you have a pre-meditation ritual.
Yeah.
Which I find really, really interesting.
Because I want to get into it. I want to assign meaning.
Yeah.
To what I'm doing. When you assign meaning to the act, you turn on your prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex says, "Quiet. Everybody that's not involved in this intention, settle down. So the frontal lobe will actually lower the volumes of the circuits in the brain that are disturbance.
The circus in the
So when you
brain.
assign meaning to something, you get more value from it. So I just learned that if I just get in and just do my meditation, sometimes they're wonderful because I've done it enough times. But if I just drop in, it doesn't have any meaning. If it doesn't have any meaning, then it just becomes another routine. You're doing your meditation, but you're thinking about your coffee. You're drinking your coffee. You're already thinking about your emails. The brain's an anticipation machine, and we lose our free will to that kind of programming. So when I get my think box really clear, it's just like when I used to golf. I would just kind of look at where I was going to hit the ball. I was thinking about the club I was going to use, how I was going to swing, and how I was going to feel. I work it all out in my think box. When I get my play box, I've done all my thinking. Now I'm just going to execute, right? So we found that when people do that, we do this in our week-long events. I'll always say to the audience, all right, after we come back from the break, so turn to someone now, and I want you to have a conversation about what you love about yourself, that you did really well in that last meditation. What did you stick? What felt right for you? What did you execute really well? I want you to articulate that and remind yourself, reproduce that same level of mind, install the neurological hardware by firing and wiring so you can step into that footprint and do that again in the next meditation. Then I say to them, now let's light a match in a dark place. If you had another opportunity to do another meditation, what would you bring? What would you work on improving? What would you become aware that you don't want to do that you did in that last meditation? Let's get really clear about what you're not going to do.
Like maybe
and if you had another opportunity, what you would do.
negative thoughts drift.
And somehow that kind of shapes the brain for the next experience, for them to evolve their experience, because they're in the experience now. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not getting off the exit of my job. I'm not getting off the exit of my ex. I'm going to go straight. I'm going to just keep. You can make those turns in the beginning. It's normal.
That's interesting because a lot of people that say, we'll talk better therapists or doctors, and they're helping people, and they say the only way to move is through. There's no left or right. You have to face it head on. And that's where your growth happens. And that's where change happens. Do they talk about this stuff in AA, Mo? Is this do they talk about meditation or any type of thing like starting your day in the mornings and having a conversation? Maybe you have like a mantra that you say, like, today is a new day. I'm going to choose and show up for myself or something like that. Do they do that in the AA meetings? Or anybody that's in the chat, if you've gone or experienced this? I'm interested. I'm curious to know. Like, I know these meetings are literally built around keeping you sober and keeping you on track. And I know there are many people that don't feel comfortable or safe in a safe space to go to these meetings, even though I know and I've heard great things about them. I do feel like, you know, some people are just full of shame and they don't want to face it and see other people around them. But maybe there's something that you can share that you do each day that maybe they can do at home, and that can help them to get to that safe space or get to that better space within, like you experience when you go to the meetings. But you had an earthquake alert? Oh gosh. In California? Booze was your best friend. Cigs are that annoying friend who make you laugh sometimes. And booze was spiritual as well as physical alcoholism, or cigs are just physical unhealthy. Yeah, addiction is addiction. I was watching the guy who plays Spider-Man. He was actually talking about alcohol. He never thought he was addicted to alcohol, but he was doing something. I guess it's a movement. I heard it for the first time this year, or this year, this past January, which is Dry January. And I guess it's something that people do because the holidays are so filled, like, from November to December of gatherings and socials and people drinking quite often. So they do a dry January thing. So I don't drink enough to even know about that kind of life. But so anyway, the dry January, he was like finding himself struggling so hard. This is the guy who plays Spider-Man. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. But he said, I was struggling so hard to not have a drink, he started thinking to himself, wow, this is interesting. I didn't know I thought about alcohol this much. So he was talking to his girlfriend and like, I feel like I am going through some type of withdrawal or something, but that's probably just because we came off of binge drinking for the last few months. Let me get past it. I'm sure it'll go away. So by the end of January, he was like in such a dire state in his mind, struggling with the fact that maybe I do have a problem with alcohol. So then he was like, "Okay, well, let me try and give February a go." So he tried to go without alcohol for February and found it even more difficult. He was like almost like shaking and like binging to want to drink. He Even though he didn't drink, that's when his mind opened up like, wow, I feel like I should have moved through this already. And the fact that I'm more so being plagued by this, maybe I do have an alcohol issue. So then he goes on to, all right, let me just ride this out. And then 6 months later, with no alcohol, he showed up in a way that he hasn't shown up for himself in so long. And at that point, he wasn't even thinking about alcohol anymore. But he said, I don't remember the last time I had ever been that happy. I don't remember feeling the absolute, like, unweighted joy each day waking up as I felt in the space where I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 6 months. So, it was pretty powerful because he didn't start it as he thought he had a problem. He started it as, "Okay, well, we're gonna take January off, like, we're gonna just go with this movement, this dry January movement, and, we'll do a little January cleanse since we've been drinking for November, December pretty heavily with all these social functions for the holidays. Let's just go ahead and do this January cleanse." And then discovering something about himself, that maybe he does have an alcohol problem, that he can't stop thinking about it. And that's usually when the word addiction is thrown around. If something that you just can't stop thinking out and you feel like you need it, like you're fiending for it, that is usually what puts you in the space of being an addict. And he had to learn and discover it in a way that he wasn't expecting it. So it was like a shock to the mind, but then feeling that euphoria, like something that he had dismissed for so long because he had, I guess, been, medicating it with alcohol for so long. And then he, on 6 months on the other side of it with no alcohol, like, who is this person? I'm finally me again. Like I lost that person and I didn't realize it. So it's pretty powerful. I'm interested in talking about a higher power as something that's strength can be drawn from at some of these meetings. Oh, like talk like religion? One day at a time is easy. Sorry, just had an earthquake alert. Oh gosh, I hope that you guys, if there's an alert for an earthquake, hopefully that doesn't mean that you're actually going to get one. Does it always mean that you get one if you had an alert? Yeah, we talk and learn a lot about thinking, our actions, and meetings. I'm sorry I had to run. I'll check out later. Thanks for all you do. Oh, thanks, Ash. Love you, boo. Mm-mm. So, yeah, I wonder, yeah, do they talk about religion? Do they talk about religion in AA meetings? That's a great question, though. You're the only one I know in the chat that has experience that's actually communicate. A lot of people are watching, but not everybody, participates in the conversation. That's okay, as long as they're learning something from it. But yeah, I just felt like I know it got off on a side tangent with what's the guy's name who plays freaking Spider-Man? My gosh. He literally just posted this thing about it, and it was interesting. You know how that goes when you type in an algorithm about my topic today, what I was doing research, about addiction. So then it pulls up all of the people that have posted things about addiction and their story. So that's how I knew about that story. No earthquake yet. Knock on wood, hitting my head. Love you, boo. Okay, let's continue on. Yes, we talk about having a higher power. Good. I mean, whether people believe in religion or not, I feel like it's something that is at least a positive, something that someone can dive into and hold on to. And, you know, it's not negative for you. It's definitely something that, especially if it's something that keeps you being sober. Okay. We haven't even gotten through. We just talked
But you
about the
start making those
meditation
turns, and then
part.
all of a sudden you're realizing, I'm not going to make those turns. And you drive right past the exit. I drive right past, I'm too old.
Yeah.
I drive right past, I'm too out of shape. I drive right past, my disease isn't going to go away.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with.
Hold on, let me back up. I don't know what he's talking about.
To do another meditation, what would you bring? What would you work on improving? What would you become aware of that you don't want to do that you did in that last meditation? Let's get really clear about what you're not going to do. And if you had another opportunity, what you would do. And somehow that kind of shapes the brain for the next experience, for them to evolve their experience, because they're in the experience now. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not getting off the exit of my job. I'm not getting off the exit of my ex. I'm going to go straight. I'm going to just keep. You can make those turns in the beginning. It's normal. But you start making those turns, and then all of a sudden you're realizing, I'm not going to make those turns, and you drive right past the exit. I drive right past, I'm too old.
Yeah.
I drive right past, I'm too out of shape. I drive right past, my disease isn't going to go away.
Yeah.
There's
All the
something wrong with me.
excuses.
You just keep driving past those, and the next thing you know, you run into something big. So it's trial and error, you know? I mean, this is like, it's so important for people to realize if it took them 2 years of chronic stress to develop their health condition, it's not going to go away in 2 meditations. You know, when I tell them, I say, you're not that good. You're just not that good. Like, just get real here. Like, 1 foot in the quantum world, 1 foot in the real world. I'm a pragmatist. I don't want to talk about quantum superimposition if it has no value in my life. I want to talk about what it is that evolves my experiences. So if you're truly in the game of change, then you would be rehearsing how you were going to be in the next Zoom meeting if you were really off in the last one. If you wouldn't say, oh, I'm this way because of that person or that circumstance. That's that program of being a victim saying that person or that circumstance is actually controlling the way I feel and think. My response to that person is making me sick. It's actually weakening the organism. Okay, the next time I have that opportunity, if I'm truly in the game of evolution, let's see if I can stay in my heart, and the whole time I'm not going to react. That would be a victory for me. That would be a victory. So then when at the end of the day, you go, I actually kind of love myself. I actually got my behaviors to match my intentions. I got my actions equal to my thoughts. I had a new experience, and it actually felt good. Hey, I'm going to do that again. And you start doing it with your children. You start doing it, opening the door for the person who's walking out of the office building.
That's exactly, that's what I was saying earlier. It's like, if you've been stuck in this pessimist, like angry kind of space in this way, and you're expecting a change in your life and the way people treat you is bad and nobody likes you or whatever the situation, and you're like blaming everybody else, and you're not taking that space for yourself in the morning to give yourself a good look in the eye and a good once over and say, you know what was your part in that? How could you have changed that? How could you have changed the outcome? And then deciding and putting into action of how you're going to show up and change that. How are you going to make that change? And then actually implementing it and feeling that feeling of euphoria, like, wait a second. So if I would have approached this differently all along, this was the outcome I would get. This positive energy, you probably would, if you've been in that space for a while, you probably would shock quite a few people with having a more positive response to their being in front of you. So I think that's the power of it, is feeling that instant gratification, that instant release of dopamine, because you got that reward. And when people feel rewarded, they feel that dopamine releases and they feel good and they feel, strong and confident and worthy. And that's the space that I feel like you have to get to be able to feel worthy of not needing that addiction, whatever that addiction is for you. So it's pretty powerful. It sounds simple, but you're just changing the way that you approach or handle a situation. But when you're in the moment and you're a redliner, which means people can set you off to like only seeing red, and you are like wall-eyed and all you see is, destruction, and you got to like take a quick breath and kind of breathe through it and approach it in a more responsive way rather than a reactive way where you just want to punch someone in the face. Maybe taking a deep breath and respond in a different way that will shock yourself. That outcome is what will get you started to your journey of becoming your higher status, your higher state of mind.
You start letting people go ahead of you in traffic. You're just cool. You're no longer in that vigilant state. Now, get enough people doing that, and all of a sudden you start noticing your wife a little bit differently, or Röntgen's all of a sudden starting to smile a little bit more. He seems way more relaxed and chilled. People are going to start getting relaxed and chilled around you because mirror neurons in the tribe say, hey, there's somebody doing something that I'd like to do. I just need evidence to be able to do it. And all of a sudden, you start developing a community of people that start behaving differently. What's the significance of that? That's called emergence. An emergent consciousness is that everybody's behaving differently. And that is what's going to change the world, you know?
Emergent
Sorry to interrupt.
consciousness.
If you are enjoying this content, there's loads more just like it on my channel. So please do take a moment to press
An emergent consciousness.
your
I like
work
it.
is that we all have a choice. We can choose and practice the way that we want to feel so that we actually start feeling it every day. You mentioned victim mindset a little bit already, and I want to talk a little bit about that shortly because
Oh,
I
you
think
just
many
talked about that,
people
Bo.
will say,
How interesting he's saying this, because you must really be paying attention in your AA meetings. He says the victim mindset, how you said earlier, you were like, oh, poor me. So this is interesting that you said that you were in that mindset at one point, but you have to move through that. So I'm curious to see. I guess clearly that's a thing. That's a thing, poor me, or victim mindset. I like how you put that.
I'm the way I am because of this.
Like maybe a
And
finger pointer.
We'll get to that in just a second. Before we move to that, for someone who is watching this or listening and is intrigued, and they go, okay, I understand, I've got a choice, I can practice feeling an elevated emotion. They also hear you saying that this can take time. If you spent 10 years in stress, it ain't going to happen overnight.
And sometimes it does, though.
But sometimes it can do. How quickly might someone, if they wake up and they don't reach for the phone and don't put the news on and they decide to engage in a meditation, maybe with a pre-meditation ritual like you do, how quickly might someone start to feel a difference? 1 day, 2 days? Or is it realistic that within 7 days, someone's going to start to feel quite differently?
Okay, let's talk about this because I don't want to mislead anybody. Knowledge is the forerunner to experience. The more people understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier. And this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. The practical application in understanding that philosophy, that theory, that intellectual knowledge, that information, once you start to apply it and personalize it and demonstrate it, the more you can understand that, why you're doing it and what you're doing it, you get greater value out of it. So we have people.
It's almost like goes to being a writer in college. I took these writing classes, and the who, what, when, where, why. I think we even talk about that in like middle school and high school, stuff like that. It's like when you're writing a hypothesis, or I forget what class that might have been in, but it's the who, what, when, where, and why. It's the same, seems like the same type of, application that he's saying is, to fixing yourself and getting to the root of the problem. Is you have to understand all of those things to come up with your own hypothesis of how you're going to fix it, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense for my mind.
People that are diagnosed with serious health conditions, that are nurses, that are cancer researchers, that are physicians, that are engineers, or just a person who just really wants to understand the content. Now, this is, it's so much easier to forget this information than to remember it. It's just, I always laugh at myself because I have to go back and relearn it again. And I think I know it pretty well, and yet I forget. I don't know why, but it's just the way it is. So when our meditations get stale, it's because we forget what we're doing, right? So the person who really, really takes the time to study instead of watching Netflix, instead of scrolling through TikTok, instead of getting on their phone and doing mindless texts or whatever. They're only going to set aside an hour a day, and I'm going to learn this information. When they sit down to do the work, they're present.
Yeah.
They understand if they feel this emotion, that they're going to signal a new gene in a new way. If they feel the other emotion, they're going to downregulate that gene and upregulate the gene for their disease. So now it's an understanding.
Yeah.
If I rehearse how I'm going to be mentally, I'm going to install the hardware in my brain. If I keep doing it, it's going to become a software program. I'm going to start acting that way. Okay, if I say I can't, it's too hard, I'm too tired, I don't feel good, those are the things that stop me. Okay, but what if I just start saying anything is possible? I believe in synchronicities. What if I, with my intention and attention, just really get clear on that? Would that be the new voice in my head? So now, the person who's truly present and not thinking about their shower or the emails they have to do or their cell phone or their texts or when they have to take their kids to ballet or whatever, you're going to get to all of that. The person who's truly present, if they follow the instructions, we've seen them have very significant changes. First, in their subjective experience of themselves. Like, wow, my back pain isn't there. That's kind of weird. Or, God, I slept better last night.
That's so he's saying it like it's easy to do, but sometimes it's really hard to quiet your mind, you know? Like sometimes you're just so you I feel like we're in such a world where it's so fast changing and everything. There's so many things to, keep your mind occupied, and it's almost just like an ADD world, It's like there's so many things happening at all times. You have to be quick, you have to be fat. Like even starting back on my social media journey and trying to figure out this whole world, all of the diagnostics show it's a 15-second world. You have to captivate somebody in a 15-second mindset before they move on and trying to, it's like constantly trying to keep your mind releasing that dopamine and being invigorated. And, it's a really difficult thing when you live that life and you're in that life for the most of your waking part to take that, even that 1 hour, and quiet it all down. Just like what that's the only time you're ever going to get in that. And what he's saying, how important it is first thing in the morning, because you're just waking up. So when you're just waking, your mind's not firing on all those levels. You still have enough quiet zone that you can, if you learn the practice of just focusing on the questions you're asking yourself in that moment, like, who do you want to be today? Who are you need to show up for yourself. What are you going to do? Who do you want to be in this world, and how are we going to get there? And keep your mind focused on those things. Just keep saying to yourself when it starts to drift, nope, that's not what we're talking about right now. And literally it's just you having a conversation with you, right? Like, nope, don't let your mind drift. Nope, we're not going there. We'll deal with that later. All of those surface level things, your emails, your phone, your text messages, all your stuff, you're going to get to that in the day. But right now you have to say, I'm going to dedicate this hour to me, and we're going to have this conversation, and we're going to tackle how we're going to handle this day. And it's got to be a day by day thing. It's got to be a moment by moment thing. Same thing with me when I went off the rails with my eating and was so addicted to getting that dopamine from food and put on all that weight and just was in such a depressed and negative state. This was my mindset. Like, I can't be this. This is not who I am. I've lost myself. Who am I? I need to get back to who I am and who I want to be, and show up for myself, show up for my kids, show up for my husband, show up for my friends, my family. I need to show up for them in a way that I haven't done, because I put myself in this space and now I'm going to bring myself out, and no one can do that but you. You can't do it for anybody but you. You have to start with you wanting to make that change. Otherwise, you're always going to find a reason. Oh, this person pissed me off. Now I got to go and I need a drink. I need to have this. Like, you have to say, I don't want to be that person, because it's never just one drink, or it's never just one shot, or whatever your vice is. It's never just one thing. It always ends up leading to a different space when you're an addict. So that's where you have to draw the line and say, you know what, I don't need that. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to hit the gym, or what I'm going to do today is go for a walk. Or maybe you have a hobby, maybe there's a car you've been needing to work on, maybe you want to fix up something in your house. Do that. Put your effort in something else that'll keep your mind occupied and not thinking about the other thing. And I know, Bo, you probably have gone through all of these levels, but is that not true? You need to occupy your mind with something else to get your mind off of thinking that you need that. So let's continue.
These small indicators are feedback to tell you that whatever you're doing inside of you is producing a result outside of you. Keep that up over a period of time, and you see instrumental changes taking place in the person. Now, another person who has had a series of traumas, been abused in some way from childhood, is facing a lot of health conditions, a lot of emotional and psychological conditions. We don't want them to heal
Yes, Bo, you do.
in 1 week. We want them
It
to
happens.
work on overcoming those emotional states, and those are the victories. So sitting down in the meditation, and when their body starts getting agitated or starts getting anxious, instead of quitting and saying, I can't meditate, because that would be the extent of that person, just be curious. What's on the other side of this? Can I lower the volume to this emotion? My body's craving this emotion. Let me settle it down into the present moment. That would be a victory.
So that person with a lot of trauma, there's a moment in the meditation where they feel uncomfortable. The easy thing would be, hey, I'm going to stop. I'm going to put on Instagram. I'm going to get a coffee. I'm going to do anything else to distract me. You're saying that's the key moment. You want to sit with that and hopefully break through that.
What I'm saying is there's no such thing as a bad meditation. There's only you overcoming you. People think I'm doing my meditation wrong. No, you're doing it right.
Even if it's difficult.
That is the moment that is going to define the person. So then the person goes, oh God, I feel really uncomfortable. I'm not a good meditator, or something wrong with me. It's my trauma, it's my past, it's my parents, it's whatever. The person who says, no, I'm going to sit in the presence of this anxiety, and I'm going to keep working with my body. I'm going to keep lowering the volume to that emotion. Now listen, you keep lowering the volume to that emotion, you're going to take your attention off that past problem, because you only put your attention on that past problem because of the emotion. I'll never tell anybody to go back and review their past. I'll say overcome the emotion. Overcome the emotion.
This is a key point, I think, which I really want to talk to you about today, Dr. Joe. Trauma, right? There's a lot of awareness growing now about trauma, the impact of our childhoods, how we're spoken to, the beliefs we take on as kids, how that impacts us as adults. Now, one approach to deal with trauma is to go there, to go and unpick it and uncover it and see a therapist and detail what happened, why it happened, get an understanding of why you're behaving a certain way as an adult. Now, I think for many people, I include myself in this, that can be incredibly powerful and incredibly important. But I also see, when I think of your work, I wouldn't say it's mutually exclusive necessarily, from the outside at least. But is there a danger that we can spend too long in our trauma, processing our trauma, trying to think about it? Because effectively, a key message from your work is don't get stuck in those emotions of the past. Don't let your past define you. Think about that vision of the future. Start to feel what you want to feel in the future so you can experience it right now. But can someone go back, revisit their trauma, try and process it? And is that approach consistent with yours, or would you say it's a better approach, or a different approach is to not spend time there, just create the new reality?
Yeah, I think I'm down the middle on this, okay? I think there are many modalities that work for trauma. What I've discovered is that insight never really changes behavior. You can see that your father was overbearing or was an...
So, okay. So how I feel, this is personal, but how I feel about, and some people, I feel like, you do need, maybe they do need to revisit it, but I feel like what he's saying, you're not your past, you're not what's happened to you. Bad things happen to people every day, all the time. So that doesn't define you. What you went through doesn't define who you are. What defines who you are is who you choose to be when you show up for yourself right now in this moment, because what happened yesterday is yesterday. So it's almost like when my teenagers are talking about, oh, I promise I'm going to do this. I'm like, I'm tired of saying this over and over. I'm going to be a different person and, choosing, but I did it, I did it 3 times last week, or I did it. I'm like, that was last week. You have to choose that every day. You have to choose to show up to be a better person every day. You don't get credit because you did it a couple times, a week or a month before. You got to make that choice every single day and show up every single day. So yes, there are bad things and people have bad childhoods and bad things do happen and you got to work through it, but it shouldn't define your decision. You can't keep blaming that on who you are today. You're a grown up and now now you got to take that opportunity to make those changes for yourself. You can't keep blaming that in the past, because then you're just stuck in the past because you keep referring and relating to it. You got to say, that did happen to me, yes, but I moved through it. I'm a different person today because I choose to be. And that's who I am today. And that's who I want to be today. And that's a conscious effort and a choice. And that's the beautiful thing about being who we are. We get to choose, especially in this country. You get to choose who you want to be. You get to show up each day and decide who are you going to be? What are you going to be today? In any country, and as a human being, you get to choose that. But you don't have somebody dictating, I guess, is what you're gonna like be in life. I guess is where my mind was going on that thought. But about, as an American, you get to really have full freedom of choice on what you want to be, who you want to be. Do you want to start a business? What business is that? Is that the realm you want to go into? You get those choices. You cannot keep putting it to the past and saying, oh, I am who I am and my life is this because this is what happened to me when I was a kid, or this is what happened to me when I was a teenager. It happened, you moved through it, but now you got to decide, do you want to make that who you are? Are you stuck there? Are you unhappy because you're stuck there? Or can you decide, you know what? I'm not going to let that define me. Today I'm going to show up and I'm going to be happy and I'm going to find things to smile about. And I'm going to talk about what I love about myself today and stop talking about what I don't love about myself and start focusing on that positive and change the energy from within, which will change the energy on the outside, which will change your life as a whole. I think is like a very powerful message, is being stuck in the past, and you have to at some point choose, show up for yourself today and stop being pulled back to something that already happened. Can I get an
alcoholic, or you could see all these different things, like you could come up with the insight of all these different things. The problem that I see with people is then they tend to excuse their change.
That's right, Bill.
By saying, oh, I had a rough childhood, that's why I am the way I am. They're excusing their present position. So, and again, trauma is a difficult thing, but for me, the person who's living by the identity in their life that they were traumatized as a child or whatever it is, or they've had a trauma in their life, I'm not saying forget the trauma and create another emotion. I'm saying that the person who's willing to go through the emotion and keep working on lowering the volume to it. We have had so many people in this work with brutal pasts, really, really difficult pasts, do the work, and finally they reach that point where they just break free from the emotion. They look back, and I have interviewed enough of them. It's the same thing. They look back at their entire past, and they don't want to change one thing in their past because it brought them to this elegant moment where they're liberated. They see their betrayers, they see their abusers, they have nothing but love for them. Now, the side effect of that, and many times they'll say, it was like my heart blew wide open. They had to pass through the valley of the shadow of darkness to get there. And they just thought, I don't know if I can go any further.
Bible
They went one more time. And the body literally was liberated from the past, right? Because the trauma is not just in the brain. The trauma is stored emotionally.
I'm going to back that up.
And the body literally was liberated from the past, right? Because the trauma is not just in the brain. The trauma is stored emotionally in the body. So you want to take the body out of the past, out of the known. What do you think the body's going to say if it's been conditioned to be the mind? The unknown is a scary place. You step out into the unknown, you're going to be unprepared for that trauma. You don't know how it's going to happen. And so the person keeps clinging to the known. But when the person finally overcomes the emotion, the body literally is freed from the chains of the past. The side effect of that is seeing the past from a greater level of consciousness. Lo and behold, there goes the suicidal tendencies, there goes the dysfunction, there goes the irritable bowel syndrome. That was because the body was still living in that past event by living by the same emotion. So the research on
even to IBS, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought, right? Like you are physically affected by obviously something that's gone through you trauma, but it's the mind who keeps your body in a decaying state on the inside if you just keep allowing that negative traumatic scenario to keep plaguing you. If you keep living it and reliving it and not making yourself move through it and move on past it, you're continuing to keep your body in a status of just angst and pain, and how it actually, the mind and those thoughts physically are controlling the inside and how your body is affected. Interesting. Very important to have a power. For some people, it's a doorknob or Buddha. For me, it's the same one you have from, sorry, there's so much light over here. We learn to depend on the high. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, I don't have, I mean, I'm very confident in being a Christian and talking about God. And I do feel like he, I mean, look at in prisons, right? Like how many people that had a dark past, and then they go in there and they walk with God. They find Jesus. They walk with their Christian path, and it brings them to being a good person. And whether or not you believe in that or not, you have to believe in the positivity of it. Whether if it's changing someone's life for a good and taking a murderer or a rapist or somebody who has done horrible things, maybe they're, robbed a bunch of houses or whatever the case, beat people to death, and now they're choosing, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to live that life. I don't want to burn eternally. I want to walk with someone who's going to make me a better person and show up for myself differently and be a better person. Whether you believe in religion or not, you have to believe that that is something positive for someone to have to help them change and help them know that they're not in this alone, and that they can be forgiven. And that's the beauty of God's love, is he will forgive you. You are forgiven for your sins if you just come to him and bring it to him and lay it down at his feet and say, I can't do this alone. I need your help. I need your strength. And he sends all the power of his archangels to be with you, to come and show up for you, to carry you when you can't walk. And I know that when our daughter got cancer, I never blamed God once. I knew the devil and his minions, they want to bring down the forces of God, and they want to bring down, people that are meant to show up for God in the biggest way and have a testimony. And she is his testimony. And we went through something so horrible, and I don't think we could have done it without him being in our lives. So I think it's a positive realm to have that space and have that higher being in your life like that. I mean, it's not someone who's preaching negative things, right? God is love, and God is, his whole message is to approach life through love. And like this man is saying, approaching your day with your heart, leading with your heart, and that will guide you to a better life in general. You're not leading with your heart if you're responding in a negative way and yelling and screaming, and that's not leading with your heart. Leading with your heart is leading with compassion and saying, you know what, I'm going to put that other person that I don't like aside, that person that always has a negative outcome that nobody likes. I'm going to put that person on the back burner this time, and I'm going to show up with my heart today and just see the change and see how it affects you. It can't hurt, right? It can't hurt.
memory is kind of fascinating, and I've studied it enough, the way we recount the past
Right.
is not the way it happened, even if you absolutely think you remember it being that way. So we don't have the same brain as we did when we were 8 years old or 12 years old or 20 years old. We have a different brain. We have a completely different brain. So the fabrication of the story for many people, they embellish the story and make it seem even worse than what it was. But what you're saying is, I changed in those moments, and from a biological standpoint, I haven't been able to change since. So let me tell you why it's been so hard for me to change. And the story becomes dramatized or embellished. And the person works them up, fire themselves into this emotional froth, and then fires and wires the same circuits in the brain, and they're actually reaffirming their limitation. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just...
I definitely there have been people in, the surrounding orbit of our lives that have definitely done this. And I feel like it had a very big physical, traumatic result from diving too deep and then diving too deep into the past or a childhood or a situation where what he's saying is so many clients and people have come to him, and the longer they're going into their time together, their therapy, they're starting to dramatize because they really want that to be the problem. They want the childhood or the situation that they've gone through to be the problem. So he's seeing that his clients are, instead of moving through it like he's asking them to, it's almost like they don't want to let go. They want to make that the reason that they're unsuccessful, or something bad is like their life isn't going the way they want to. They want to hang it up on something else rather than just looking at, maybe you're the problem. Maybe the way you're approaching things is the problem. Maybe the way you're dwelling on a past, and now you're dramatizing that past and creating it to be something bigger than it was when you started talking about it. Now you're creating that, and that's going to be your story that you're not able to move past, and it's keeping you in a space you don't want to be in. But the problem is inward. It's you. You're the one allowing that to happen. No one can allow that but you. You have to learn to let go of that and decide you're done with that, and you want to be who you want to be, because you have the power to do that, and your past doesn't have the power over you. Pretty powerful stuff right there.
We're just taking too long, right? So 50% of that story isn't even the truth. It means, in a sense, we're reliving a miserable life that we never even had. And we don't want, but the unknown, people would rather cling to their suffering. This is not a judgment. We all do this. We'd rather stay in the known than take a chance in the unknown, because those emotions of survival are saying what? Run from the unknown. The unknown is a scary place. So now the unknown, you got to come up against that moment where you're going to actually leave that behind and step into the unknown. This is not a intellectual process. This is David and Goliath. There's a battle going on where the body keeps wanting to go back to its familiar state because it's subconsciously been conditioned to be the mind, stay in the known. So then if the person keeps revisiting the trauma from the past, I'm not certain enough that when they revisit the trauma from the past, unless they learn how to desensitize their emotional response to it, that it's going to work for them. What I learned is that if the person overcomes the emotion, the memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. And now you no longer belong to the past. So the body gets frustrated in the meditation. Instead of taking your blindfolds off or turning the lights on and say, listen to the voice, I can't meditate, this is too much. The sincere person says, what's on the other side of I can't? What's on the other side of this emotion? Let me see if I can settle my body back down out of that emotion and recondition it to a new mind. And the act of doing that in the beginning is very tedious. And all of a sudden, the person starts getting better at it. And they're telling their body it's no longer the mind, that they're the mind. They're executing a will that's greater than that program. And just like training an animal, you stay, you're not going to die, I'm going to feed you, you can check your emails, you can check your texts, but this is my time right now. And you keep doing that when the body keeps settling it down to the present moment. It acquiesces. It surrenders to a new mind. And when that happens, we've seen this, we've measured it, there's a liberation of energy. We go from particle to wave, we go from matter to energy. That emotion is liberated from the body, and now there's energy to heal. There's energy to create a new life. It's available energy. It's free energy. Yeah. So the person goes, wow, I see it from a different level of consciousness. I have nothing but love. Or, my goodness, I'm no longer that person. And they're now free from the past. Now, the side effect of that is that there's a biological upgrade. There's a neurological upgrade. There's a chemical upgrade. There's a genetic modification that's taking place. Why? You think the same way, you make the same choices, you do the same things, you create the same experiences, you feel the same emotions. Your biology will stay the same because you're the same. Now the person's thinking differently, they're making different choices, they're doing different things, they're behaving in different ways, they're having new experiences, and they're certainly feeling different emotions. The body reorganizes to a new chemistry. And they'll tell you, I'm not that person any longer. I'm literally not that person. And they're betrayers, even if they're family members, they have forgiveness for them. And what is forgiveness? You take your attention off the emotion. You overcome the emotion. You don't pay attention to the person or the problem. Now you're free. You free yourself. You free them.
Right.
And what if someone says to you, Dr. Joe, look, I get what you're saying, but my ex-husband cheated on me, right? They shouldn't have done it. I cannot forgive them for what they did. And the reason I'm asking is because this is exactly what happened with one of my patients. Because this often happens. So I talk a lot about forgiveness. And a lot of people push back. They go, yeah, I want to, but you don't know what happened to me. This was really, really bad. Like, this cannot be forgiven. What would you say to that person?
I'd say to them, I want you to think about something in your life that you've done that you would like forgiveness for, that you don't feel good about. And forgive that person in the way that you would want to be forgiven, and you would be forgiven yourself. I mean, we've all had indiscretions. Nobody's perfect. So that person that is in that state is still in the emotional state. The problem with that is that no new information can enter the nervous system that is not equal to the emotion the person experiencing, because it's not relevant. So the question really is how long do you want to do that? How long do you want to do that? And again, knowledge and information about what that is doing to that person's health and their biology. If you reason with them, we've had this happen enough times in our work. That's not an uncommon situation. When the person finally takes their attention off that and puts it on something else, they notice that they feel differently.
Yeah.
You can't just tell a person to forgive, because it's kind of an etherical thing. It's a subjective process, right? Yeah. So we've seen this, our oxytocin levels in a lot of our participants go up 200 times, right? That's a lot of love. Oxytocin signals nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals another chemical that literally causes the arteries in your heart and lungs to actually expand. There's more energy, there's more blood going into your heart. Okay.
Interesting.
So when that person takes their attention off their ex, takes their attention off their past, and starts looking at themselves, denaturing that identity that's built on the past. See, that person had a reaction to that circumstance, and that reaction produces a refractory period of chemicals and emotions, right? And if you don't know how to control that refractory period, and it lasts for hours or days, it's called a mood. You keep that same refractory period going on for weeks or months, now it's a temperament, one long emotional reaction. You keep that refractory period going on for years on end, that's a personality trait, and most people's personalities are defined by, I am this way because my husband cheated on me. What you're really saying is, you haven't changed in 10 years, and you're giving your vital life force to that person. Who is worth 10 years of your life?
Right. Yeah.
Who's worth it? So then,
especially someone
the stronger the emotion we feel, the more we pay attention to the cause. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. That person's giving their vital life force to heal, their life force to change to that person or that circumstance. Lower the volume to that emotion. You take your attention off that person or problem. It's not the person or the problem. They're using unconsciously that person or that circumstance to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. That's why they keep thinking about it. If they weren't addicted to that emotion, they would stop thinking about it. So then, is it the person? No, it's you're left. We'll take your ex-husband and put him in a rocket in a straitjacket. Let's shoot him to the moon. Now what? Now what? Now what are you going to do? You still have that embossed in your brain and conditioned in your body. At what point So then the research on oxytocin, you can only talk around this. You can't say to someone forgive if they still feel the emotion. They're separate from the act of forgiving.
Yeah.
Imagine feeling so much love by no one's doing it to you. It's actually coming from within you. You have that moment, that catharsis, where you feel that emotion. Oxytocin levels go up just slightly in the research, just a little bit more elevated. An elevation in oxytocin makes it impossible to hold a grudge. They've done the research on the data. You cannot hold a grudge. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You just go, I like this feeling better than that feeling. And because I like this feeling better than that feeling, you're okay. Forget about it. I'm good. That person who falls in love again, whose husband cheated on them, who falls in love again and finds a person who is intelligent and caring and kind and loving and provides, all of a sudden they can forgive that person, like, oh my God, that had to happen because now I have a better person in my life. Well, if you don't let go of that, you're never going to have this. In fact, if you bring that into the next relationship, you're not going to have a healthy relationship because there's going to be a trust issue on every level. So then you want an equal? Write down exactly what you want and become that person and see what comes to you. Try it out as an experiment. If I really work on my God, this emotion is actually, now that I understand the science behind this emotion is actually weakening me every day. It's knocking my brain and body out of homeostasis. Stress is when our brain and body are knocked out of homeostasis and balance. Turning on the stress response just by thought alone. Mm-hmm. Hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease. My thoughts are making me sick. Is that person or that circumstance worth it? If my thoughts could make me sick, is it possible that my thoughts can make me well? Well, now you got to come up against the belief. No, I don't really want to believe this. Then that really means that you want to stay in that emotional state. But go see some testimonials of people who've had that and see the life that they're living now. The miracles, the synchronicities, the opportunities, the coincidences, the healings. They bless their past. They say, my disease, that condition, that was my greatest teacher.
Yeah.
That was my greatest teacher. And now the soul is free. Like, let's get on. In eternity, it's a big place. You're going to hold on to that emotion for how long? You're not doing anything wrong. You're just taking too long. That's all.
Yeah.
And it works. It works with anything. With any. Some people want wealth, some they are bankrupt, some people their business partner took all their money, some people it's a relationship, some people it's trauma from childhood. It's all the same, but what we're looking for is wholeness. So then it's not just the emotion is driving a certain behavior. The emotion is driving a certain habit of action. The emotion is driving a certain series of thoughts that are associated with that person or that circumstance. If you truly believe that you have the power within you to change, the first step would be saying, I have to take responsibility for myself right now, because I got to start thinking differently. I got to start acting differently. I got to start feeling different. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing this. But how was self-love born? I've studied this. When the person
Before we move on to how was self-love born, I want to say, like, what he says about, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. But I have heard from so many different friends with their family members that have gone through therapy or going through therapy to work through things, and their therapists are the ones that are trying to create divide between family and self. So it's like, if you're if you can't even rely on your therapist, you got to get in a space. You got to choose, okay, this is not the path. My therapist is saying I got to detach from my family. I got to detach from people that I care about and love, that I want to have a stronger connection with, but I have these problems or issues with them. Maybe getting around somebody who's going to say, here's how we can get you more connected. You want to have a relationship with your family. You want to have that strength and put that bridge between and close in the gap. Here's how we do it. Not being around someone who's going to say, no, I'm going to divide you further. They're the problem. Put the issue on them. That's not working through you. That's tying you to your situation in the past, and it's going to keep you in the past if you're just reliving and keep putting it on somebody else. You have to, I like what he's saying, which is you have to be present in your space now and how you're going to move through it, and showing up and doing it through love and doing it through forgiveness, and holding on to all of those things, the grudges and the anger and all of that is going to do nothing but affect you on the inside and affect you physically and keep you in that dark space, and really start to change and devour who you are as a person, because you're just holding on to all that hate and the grudge and the angst and the anger of it all, instead of allowing yourself to move through it and say, you know what, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to forgive that person. I'm going to forgive them, and I'm going to try and see the other side of it, especially if that other person has already asked for forgiveness, from you, and is showing up to move through it with you, but you still keep denying it. Then who's the person that's holding you back? It's not that person anymore, is it? That person is you, because you're deciding you're not ready to let go. You want to hold on to that anger a little longer. You want to hold on to that grudge a little longer. So the only person that's going to end up really truly affecting is you are truly affecting you, because you're not allowing that space of growth, that space for love, that space for forgiveness. And if you want to lead your life, that when you sit down with yourself in the morning, you say, who do I want to be today? I want to be the person who exudes love and exudes forgiveness and understanding and compassion. You can't be that person if you're sitting with a grudge and you're sitting with anger and angst and not forgiving somebody else that's asking for forgiveness in your life. You can't be that person you want to be, because you're choosing to use that. You're choosing that path. You're choosing to hold on to that. You're choosing to live in that past and that anger and that angst in that space of a grudge. You're not living light. You're not living positivity and forgiveness and compassion. That's not what you can't be. You can't be both at the same time. You have to forgive and learn to forgive and lead with love and lead with your heart, like this man talks about, leading with compassion, leading with your heart each day. And leading with your heart is leading through forgiveness. You have to offer, and forgiveness isn't for the other person. Forgiveness is for you, because when you forgive someone, you're now saying, okay, I'm not carrying that around anymore. I am releasing your hold on me. I'm releasing that negative space. It doesn't warrant any space in my heart, in my mind, in my physical body anymore. I'm releasing that. I'm going to let it go. And therefore, you're releasing yourself from the chains that are holding you to that event, to that trauma of the past. You got to let that go. You have to lead with forgiveness and lead with your heart and move through that space. Otherwise, you're just stuck. You're just stuck, and you're addicted to being stuck to the past. And that's a big part of his messages. You don't have to be addicted to a substance. Sometimes people are just addicted to the angst and the drama of their life. And that being a part of their drama in their life is they have to have to emphasize and blow it up into this big thing to keep it relevant and keep it present. But if you want to change and you want to be that person, you want to be that light, and the person that you say you want to be, you have to, the only person that's stopping you from being that is you. You just have to show up and be that person. And it sounds simple, but really, he's saying, it's very hard and very difficult for some people to learn to just let things go.
To change, the first step would be saying, I have to take responsibility for myself right now, because I got to start thinking differently. I got to start acting differently. I got to start feeling different. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing this. But how is self-love born? I've studied this. When the person sits through the fire and sits through all of that anxiety, all that hatred, all that anger, and keeps lowering the volume, sooner or later, the body's going to release it. And when it's released, forgiveness is the side effect. You take your attention off that person because you no longer have the emotion to keep your attention on. And in fact, you feel so good. This feels better that you naturally forgive. It's not like, now you're forgiven. It's not like, hey, look at me, I'm forgiving you. It's just kind of like, wow, isn't life great?
Yeah.
Whoa, you're good. I mean, you're good. I'm getting on with my life right now, right? So emotions keep us stuck in the past, and we tell that story, and we reaffirm it, we get in trouble.
It subjectively feels better to forgive and practice gratitude and joy.
You stay there,
But biochemically, you change as well. This particular patient, when she did ultimately learn how to forgive, because her lifestyle, her diet was fantastic up to that point, but she had chronic high blood pressure. As soon as she started to learn how to forgive, blood pressure starts coming down.
Sure.
And you know this full well, like it's
interesting. So you could be healthy, you could be eating right, you could be going to the gym, you can be doing all the things, but you don't have forgiveness in your heart. You're holding grudges. So now how that's affecting is, hey, I'm eating right, I'm doing the right things, but I have super high blood pressure because you're just letting all of that anger sit in there and it's physically affecting you. It's amazing how powerful the mind is, right? Like, you can literally talk yourself in or out of anything at any time just by the power of your thoughts. So it would be silly for us to not think of how our mind controls what our physical body is going through. When you're going through a stressful situation in your life, whether it's something simple as like, I got a big exams coming up, I hope I pass because that's going to decide whether or not I get to continue on to the next level, or at work, you got a big presentation coming up, or whatever the situation, you don't sleep as well, how it affects your physical. You don't sleep as well, you don't laugh as hard, you're not as free in your spirit because you're so boggled down by those things. And it's saying, instead of approaching it with that angst, coming at it in a different way of being like, you know what? Okay, yes, I do have that stuff. I am going to have to approach those things, but I'm going to come in it with light and positivity and be like, you know what? I'm not going to stress about it. I know these things. I know these answers on this test. I've studied enough. I'm going to nail this test. I've studied enough, or I've gone over this presentation. I got this. I'm going to go in and I'm going to show up for myself in a way that is so positive and powerful because I got this. Having that kind of mentality, I'm going to go into work today and I'm going to kill it, instead of being like, oh my gosh, like, what if I don't do well? What if I underperform? Feeling doubt, 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 doubt. So what do you think is going to come when you throwing all this doubt on a pile? You're not going to have a pile of positivity. You're going to have a pile of doubt. So instead of throwing all that doubt and piling yourself and covering yourself up with all that doubt and negative energy, how about saying, you know what? You look good today. You're going to show up. You're going to nail this today. Today's going to be a good day. And throwing in all that light and positivity and good energy. Like, I'm not going to let anyone steal my shine today. So-and-so always gets on my nerves, but I'm not going to let that happen today. I get really angry in traffic. I'm going to be like, you know what? Instead of not letting you come in, come on in. Come on in and see how the change affects your energy, affects your mood. Just because you're one car closer and this car's trying to cut over, instead of getting angry and angst and mad, pull back, hang back a little, let that car in and see the difference. It really is powerful. I know it sounds like so simple that it can't make a big difference, but it is so powerful. Try it. You should give it a go today when you get off of work, or whatever, the person that usually frustrates you in the day, trying to be like, I'm not going to let you bother me today, and change how you respond to that person, or whatever the situation. Maybe showing a little more love and light instead of putting someone down for the day. Say, you know what? I really like what you have on today, or I really like your energy today, your vibe. Saying something positive when you're used to saying something negative. Give it a go. I mean, it cannot hurt. It can only empower and better you in your life. And let things go. Have a little forgiveness in your heart. Learn to let things go. Forgive that person, and that ultimately affects and forgives you, and move on. Move past it. You got to move past it to be able to inspire yourself and let yourself detach from that moment and move through it.
yes, subjectively feels great, but it is literally changing your physiology at the same time. And
let me just say one thing about that, because you could have the most organic, vegan, gluten-free, ketogenic, triple filtered water, take all your vitamins, take all your nutrients, work out, do Pilates, do yoga, do your breathing, you do all of that. Get your body chemically balanced, get your body physically balanced. But if you're not going to get your body emotionally balanced, forget it.
Yeah.
Because the moment you get emotional, your body literally goes to the past.
Interesting.
That's
He's
the one
talking
that
about
matters.
this right at 1:43. I don't know anybody back in the pager days. I don't know if I have any older folks in the chat right now or watching this, but back in the pager days, if you wanted to tell the person you love them, you wrote 143. So he's talking about self-love and how to lead with love. And it happens to be it was 143 on the stream. So look at that, how it's syncing up like that. That's pretty powerful. 143, because love has 4 letters, you has 3 letters, I love you. Self-love. Look at it, it's all syncing up. It's all intertwined, you guys.
The most. And then people, once they realize it's the emotion that's signaling the gene, oh my God, I better start really taking care of my emotional balance as much as I do with my physical exercise and my diet and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is, for many years I was focused on food and movement and sleep, and I still am.
I am too.
Those things are important, but I
too.
realize actually, if you want to get to the root of the root, it's up here.
Yeah.
It's how you think. It's how you deal with conflict. It's how you approach the world. It's also, Dr. Joe, what you said about awareness. Like the really powerful idea, one of the many powerful ideas I get from your work is it's about evolution, right? So if you've never meditated before, sure, start meditating. Learn how to meditate. Have a great meditation. Great. That's going to be better than if you weren't doing it. But then learn, I had a great meditation, but I still was judging my coworker. I still reacted to my boss. Okay, cool. Tomorrow, I'm going to see if I can show up and not react in that way.
That's
so it's
right,
not,
Bo.
and again, we're talking
Amen
about
to
trauma. You're not saying don't go back and revisit it. You're just saying, hey, maybe don't stay there too long. Maybe if you've been trying to process it for 10 years and you're still there, maybe it's time to shift a little bit. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and look, we're human beings, we're so programmed for survival. And when you're in survival and you're threatened and there's a danger, you prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
So the person who's traumatized is actually anticipating the event to happen again. And they're preparing themselves for the worst case scenario. Because there's better chances of survival if you prepare for the worst. So the brain naturally fabricates an outcome, but actually says, well, what if this happens and what if that happens? And now we're this is a really vivid imagination, but it's working against us in a lot of ways. So there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, we've all done it. You've had a trauma, you've had an insult, you've had, a betrayal, you have whatever, and then you get wise from the experience, but then you're always, if it's really a strong trauma, then you're expecting it to happen again, right? So the brain is selecting out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, the worst case scenario, and then emotionally embracing the outcome before it happens, a thought and a feeling, an image and an emotion, a stimulus and response, and they're conditioning their body into the mind of that emotion. They're reliving their past in their future every single day in the present moment. And now it becomes a very visceral and subconscious process. So it takes an enormous amount of will. It takes an enormous amount of awareness and energy to break that apart. And we have so many brain scans of people that have severe anxiety. And you cannot be anxious if you're in the present moment. And they just kept catching themselves, going to that thought and feeling that feeling and bringing it back. Getting frustrated and going, ah. And then all of a sudden they're there again. Well, why are they there? Because they've been practicing that. You keep practicing feeling anxious, you get really good at it.
You keep practice. It's like you practice. Practice makes perfect, is how they used to say. But you keep practicing the anxiety. You keep practicing the angst and the worry. You're gonna get really good at it, and that's gonna be who you are. They some therapists, I've seen the rubber band. I don't know if you guys have ever seen anybody with that, like the rubber band around their wrist. So I asked somebody one day, what did the rubber band do for you, like in your journey of your therapy journey? And the rubber band was anytime because your mind is connected with your physical, right? So anytime your mind starts to drift off into that negative space, or you start to, whatever your vice is, maybe it's you just stuck in the past and you're letting your trauma define your past and you can't you're just staying there, but you want to move forward. You want to be a better person. You want to forgive and be that person. If you find your mind drifting, you take the rubber band and snap it. So it gives you that physical pain to stop focusing on that, and a reminder that's not, oh yeah, okay, bringing yourself back in. So snapping the rubber band is their physical wake up, like people say, slap me in the face, if I start to do this or pinch me or whatever. It's your physical reminder. So the rubber band therapy is based around, reminding yourself in your physical to be present right now, right here. You're here, you're not there. So when your mind starts to drift, you snap the rubber band, and that reminds you, okay, you're here to make a new life, a new way, a new decision. You're not there anymore. So stop going back there. That's a place where you don't want to be. That's a place where it's not serving you any purpose. You've forgiven that past, and now you're moving forward. So the rubber band moment, I'll always remember that conversation with that person, like, oh, interesting, because you are so connected to that moment, but you snap the band and it's like, okay, wake up. This is where you are. You're not there. Remember, you're moving past it. It's a learned trait. Like he said, if you're used to being in that space and you're used to living in that moment, you get really good at it. So it's hard to break the habit that you've spent so long building around yourself. It's hard to break that. You want to get into a better space, whether it's at work, whether it's with a relationship, whether it's with your family, where it's trauma or past or whatever. You're not living in the present if you just keep on. And then he's saying, even if you're living in the present and you keep having anxiety about it happening again, or you don't know, is something you're out of control about, you can only control the present. Snap that band, get back in the moment and say, I'm not going to go there. I'm changing the way that is. Let's move through it and be a better version of myself. And let's approach this differently. The old way is not working. I keep staying in this, this repetitive, angry, anxiety driven state. For me to move through that, I have to approach it differently. And what does that look like for you? Being positive, and maybe approaching it positive is way he's suggesting to his clients, and saying, you have to change the pattern. That's the only way. And maybe the rubber band will work for you. Who knows?
Start practicing feeling gratitude. You get really good at that. We're doing a study with children in Australia. And I say to them, you practice being angry, you'll get good at being angry. You practice being kind, you get really good at being kind, and it feels better.
At its core, it's that simple.
It's that simple.
It really is. what you practice, you get good at.
Exactly.
One thing I've heard you say recently, which has been really helpful for me, is that you don't get up from your meditation.
Oh, you're hilarious.
Until you've overcome that emotion, until you've reached that place of calm and gratitude and joy.
With my background.
And if I think back to when I started meditating on and off maybe 10 years ago, some days I'd drop in, it would be great. Other days it would be really hard. I think, not today. So I'd walk out of it. I'd go, not today. With a complete misunderstanding that, it always has to be perfect and joyful. Whereas now, I know it's a practice. I sit there for the entire time. Some days it's wonderful. Other days it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's very powerful, what you share there. How long do you really take for your morning routine?
So I allow for 2 hours.
2 hours.
And I would do the first 20 minutes or so.
That's why it gets
30
up
minutes
so early.
depends on me. I'm in my think box. And then the next hour and a half. If it takes me an hour, Rangan, to get to the present moment, I will not get up for my meditation until I get there. So I'm just uncompromising to that, because I know that if I overcome myself, it's the overcoming process. That's the becoming process. So if I stretch myself past, it doesn't feel good, and I break through, then I'm a different person the rest of the day. If I get up and quit, then I'm the same guy.
Yeah.
I can't expect anything really magical to happen in my life. So I'm just willing to just go that distance, because I think that if you get up as the same person that sat down, nothing really happens. Nothing really happens. And we've talked to so many people that have had so many transcendental, profound experiences, and they look back at all the meditations that they've done, and it's not the good ones they remembered. It's the ones where they sat through the fire and they love themselves for doing it. They love themselves because they sat through it. That's really the value behind all of this. So for the person who's on the journey, like for me, I'm just the type of guy that, like, if I do a meditation and I get when I make it through it, and it wasn't a pretty meditation, that discomfort bothers me the whole day. It bothers me because I don't want to do that again. And I want to make sure that I'm not thinking about the news, or I'm not thinking about what people think about me. I'm not thinking about all that, any of that stuff. I'm really thinking about what happened there, Joe. Like, where did you go? Like, why are you feeling this way? Because I'm disturbed by something, because I think I could do better. It's like he's like a martial artist, you're sparring somebody, you kicked in the face 3 or 4 times. Sooner or later you say, what am I doing? Like, what? And you sit there and you think about it over and over again, and it bothers you until you figure it out, right?
And you feel good because you overcame it. You're like, hey, man, I can overcome it.
And so then what people say to me, wow, 2 hours in the morning, I say, listen, it's really simple. If I can overcome myself at the beginning of the day, the rest of my day, I can overcome anybody. Like, I'm just okay with it. When you're okay with yourself, you're okay with anybody. When you're angry.
So that's interesting, that whole concept is, he's saying he sits with himself for 2 hours. Sometimes it'll be 2 hours, sometimes it's only an hour, and he sits with himself until he works through it, until he's comfortable and he knows that he's dealt with what he's been able to deal with, his decisions from yesterday, whatever's going on in his mind, and he's able to move through all that stuff and focus now on the present. He said sometimes it takes him 2 hours to get there because his mind is flipping through all these different other thoughts and memories and things that he's trying to shuffle through, and almost like I can envision a table filled with tasks that you just need to get out off your plate and read through it and get, or mail that you're opening. You've got a bunch of mail sitting there. You got to go through it all, even if it's bills or stuff maybe you don't want to face. You just got to open it and go through it and then move on. Open it, go through it, and move on. Don't stuff it. Go through it, read through it, process through it, and then move on. Like, you can't just sit and keep dwelling on because now you got to start your day and you got to approach that day in a way of saying, okay, now because I received this information, how am I going to tackle this today? How am I going to work through it? Who am I going to show up and come up with a game plan? Okay, if this person aggravates me, or this situation I get a no, or I'm on the phone with someone for an hour trying to get this thing resolved, I have to look at it like, but I'm getting it resolved. I'm taking it off. It's getting off the table. Don't let this situation or this moment or this thing that I have to do ruin my whole day. Let's just move through it. Move on, get through it, move on. So he's saying sometimes it takes him 2 hours in the morning, as in his sit down with himself and tackling how he's got to get to the process of who he's going to be, who he's going to show up, and having that game plan every day, showing up every day like that. And that will help you change your approach and who you're being and what you decide to do with that day, and how you decide to approach and have that information. Like, you don't want to be that, like what we said before, you don't want to, if you don't want to be that person anymore and you have an idea of who you want to be, then be that. Start erasing the other part that you were. Start erasing the way that you handled it before. You don't want to be that anymore. Now you're going to be this new person. Then be that new person. Choose to show up differently. Even if you catch yourself in the moment, like the rubber band thing, snap yourself out of it. Snap that rubber band on your wrist and be like, you know what? Nope. I almost went off on you right now. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be that person. I'm going to come and say, you know what? Thank you for your suggestion, or thank you for your time, or letting that person in traffic, or whatever the situation, navigating through it in a positive way, because now you're trying to be something different. Now you're trying to be a different way. Remind yourself to break out of those old habits. That's not what you want to be, because those old habits lead to the negativity, lead to the space around you, that energy, that negative energy, that angst, that area that leads you to the addiction. And whether the addiction is something like being addicted to being angry, or being addicted to hanging on to your past, or being addicted to, I need a drink now, or I need a cigarette, or I need smoke weed, or I need whatever your addiction is, the way that you're driving, or what drives you to that addiction space, is the negativity that you hold on to, or the past, or the trauma, or whatever. He's saying for his clients, for his thousands of clients that he's helped move through any addiction, is focusing on these 9 things of 9 days of giving yourself that positive train of thought, giving yourself that space to release, to forgive, to let go, and to show up in a different way, giving you that space, giving you that positive love, saying, you know what, you can do this. You're a better person than this. You're funny. You're smart. You look good today. Feel good today. That's giving you that okay, that pass, and changing the way that you handle your days, and then receiving that love and that light that you will receive because you're changing it in a more positive way. You are going to get that positive back. And maybe today you don't feel like you need to go have that drink, or you didn't smoke as many cigarettes, because today you're feeling a little happier. Today you approach things differently, and you're getting love back and you're getting light back because today you chose to give light out. So that's so powerful. That's like, wow.
Angry with yourself, you're angry with others. If you're unhappy with yourself, you punish other people to feel unhappy because you want them to feel the way you do. It's just the way it is. You get up grateful.
Yeah.
You get up grateful just for the fact that life is a gift. I'm alive. I got a body. I have a family. I have people that love me. I can eat. I have a home. Kind of running water in my shower. I feel pretty good. Yeah, I made a bunch of mistakes, but I'm alive.
Yeah.
Hey, a new day, new life. You know,
It is
you
the
get up
same,
grateful
though.
that way, and you start seeing these coincidences happening in your life. I guarantee you, the meditation will no longer be about a have to. That's what I love about our community. We don't do the work because we have to do the work or to please God or be holy or any of that stuff. People do the work because they don't want the magic to end. The moment you see the coincidence happen in your life, you're going to stop believing that you're the victim of your life, and you start believing you're the creator of your life. And when you do, what do you think
That's
that synchronicity creates? Do you think it creates sadness or pain? The synchronicity wakes you up. You feel a little energy. You feel a little joy, and that inspires you. Like, the experiment's kind of working.
Yeah.
I think I'll show up tomorrow for the experiment again. Hey, that's kind of weird. Hey, I'm going to do it again. Wow. And then you don't want to stop doing it because you start realizing that you actually can produce effects in your life.
Yeah.
I don't care
That you
what
can
kind of
produce
past
it.
you've
Nobody
had.
else.
I don't care. You can't even tell me you're too sick to do this work. You can't tell me you're too old to do this work. You can't tell me I never meditated before to do this work. You can't even tell me that you had a brutal past that you can't do this work. I've seen it happen. All races, all colors, all sizes, all shapes, all diets, all pasts, all social status. Nobody's so special to be excluded from this principle. And so the act of making time to be a creator in your life, if you make time to be a creator in your life, that means you must believe that you're a creator in your life. If you don't make time or you don't do it, you don't believe that you're the creator in your life.
Yeah.
You're believing in your past more than you're believing in your future. You show up
Powerful.
to do the work because you want to believe in your future more than you believe in your past. And there's some people that do this work that get up and believe less in their past because they didn't overcome themselves. And then there's people who do it every day, and they get up and they believe
And then you
more in
think,
their
what
future
a
every
waste
day.
of
And
time. I just wasted
the
all
side
that
effect
time
of that
staying stuck in the past.
are all these wonderful changes that begin to happen in a person's life. And they say what everybody says, I knew it was the truth. I just had to prove it to myself.
Dr. Joe, it's always so inspirational being around you. Just to finish off, for that person who's watching now and listening and says, hey, Doc, I understand what you're saying. I get it. But I don't have time. My life is busy. I don't have time to meditate. What would you say to them?
I would say you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. I mean, if you don't have time now, make time when you can. But for the most part, I mean, I want to inspire people to not wait for that crisis or that trauma or that disease or that loss to really change. I want them to be inspired to try it out. It's an experiment. The hardest part about all of this, Rangan, is actually making the time to do it. It's the hardest part about all of this. When we make time for our precious selves, when we invest in ourselves, we invest in our future. And in order for us to believe in ourselves, we have to believe in possibility. And when we believe in possibility, we believe in ourselves. So it doesn't even have to be a long amount of time. Do a little experiment. Say, I'm not going to think these thoughts. I'll write them down. I'm not going to act this way or speak this way. And today I'm going to work on just staying conscious of these feelings That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to close my eyes for a few moments and remember that I'm not going to do these things. If that's the start, you
Write it
just
down, what
demystified
you don't
meditation,
want to
because
be.
meditation means to become familiar with. To
Huh.
become familiar with, that symbol is familiarization. To become so familiar with yourself that you can become familiar with a new self and not default back to the old person. We all default. We all react. That's not the question. The question is, how long are you going to react? How long are you going to do that for? And so we have a choice. Try it out as an experiment. Little time, just a little time. If you don't have the time, when people say, "Well, I don't have the time," and I say, "Well, get up earlier." And they say, "Well, I'm tired." And I say, "Well, go to bed earlier." What am I going to say?
Right. You have to
What is
make
it?
this
What is it?
decision.
When is it going to? When do you want to do it? If you don't want to do it and you don't have the time, don't do it. If it inspires you to do it, I want you to do it. Only do it if you're inspired. Don't do it because you have
Kinda
to.
like
Do it because you want to
fasting.
try the experiment out.
Oh,
Dr. Joe, you're an incredible human being. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rangan.
If you
all right, you guys. That was really good. Super juicy, and super amazing to go through the. Let me just stop sharing that. There we go. To go through the motions of it, it's not as simple as, it's kind of like cleaning out the skeletons in the closet. It's looking from within and saying, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to choose to be this person anymore. I like that he said what he suggests to some people is to write it down and commit, kind of like how if you're studying for a test or you're going over a proposal or a speech or whatever, you're learning and committing that to memory. Commit the things that you don't want to be to memory. Let that resonate. Write down the things you don't want to be anymore. I don't want to be reactive and explosive. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be negative and put people down. I don't want to be whatever it is. Make your list, go over that list, remind yourself of that list. And when you start becoming different and more positive, just maybe scratch some of those things off that you're now feel like you're moving through. And then before you know it, you're not going to be any of those things on that list anymore because you're choosing not to be. It's so powerful. I love it. I love that message. Leading with love and light. Leading with love and light. All right, you guys. I always am going over my time, but that's quite all right. This was such a good topic, and I felt like it could resonate with literally so many people. You don't have to have an addiction to an actual substance to be addicted to a negative lifestyle. So, and how it all coincides and affects your physical being is really something to marvel over, because it just shows how powerful your mind is and how much that affects who you are. Like what he's saying, you could be the most fit and healthy person on the outside, or on the inside, even you eat well, you work out, but your mind is still so negative and you're so mean and angry, and what your life is still not a good life to lead, because you're not a good person. You can be as healthy as you want, but on paper, with the food you eat and the exercise you do, but if your mind isn't right and you're not a good person and you're still destroying yourself because of your mental capacity of not forgiving, being stuck in the past, blaming your trauma, blaming other people, always putting the blame everywhere else, but not looking in the mirror and thinking, why is all of this? Why is your life still miserable? Why are you still going through all of these things? Is it you? Is it you that's choosing that? Is it you that's creating that scenario? Could you have handled it differently? It's really a reflection and trying to get you to look inward. So I hope that you learned some things and you're able to apply some of this stuff. And maybe you come on tomorrow, on the stream tomorrow, and be like, hey, look, I did this. I did this thing. I tried it out. I try to let someone out in traffic. I usually have road rage. I tried to let someone out in traffic today, and I did it, and it felt better. It felt good. I felt like I came home in a better mood because I didn't let my surroundings affect me like normal. So, Bo, I'm so sorry to hear about what's going on. I got to look more into this when we get off here about the tsunami and an earthquake. What? I'm going to look into that. And Joseph, I did not forget about you. I know I did say that I was going rain, snow, storm, but when I went on vacation, Joseph, I did not have the ability to stream because the signal out on the water like that and out of the country was not good where I was, just being so far out in the water on the cruise ship. So I see what you're saying. Or are you sitting down? We need to have a talk. I made a promise, rain, snow, or apocalypse. I wouldn't stop the stream, but I did. And then I came back and I was sick. And I haven't seen you on here in a while. I've been on here, but you haven't been on here. So hopefully I'll see you back on here as a regular. And yeah. Thank you for holding me accountable to my word. I do like it. I'm constantly trying to improve and grow too, you guys. No one's perfect, and that is the whole point of, what he's talking about is we all have our vices. No one's perfect. No one's above forgiveness. And the forgiveness is, don't think of it as you're letting somebody off the hook. The forgiveness is for yourself. It's for yourself to be able to grow and move through it and move on and not be holding on to that as a ball and chain to tether you to a time and a place that's negative and not serving you any higher purpose, any higher power and moving through it. So I hope you guys learned something today from this podcast. I really do appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support as always. Thank you so much. Make sure you hit the subscribe or the like button to follow me on whatever platform you're on. But if you want to get engaged in the conversation, YouTube is usually the place where I can see all the messages and you get to be a part of the conversation. I do appreciate you guys showing up and being here. I hope that, this podcast is giving you some kind of insight and helping you learn to live your best life from the inside out. I'm never going to ask you to, you have to, there's no quick shot or any pill or anything that can get you to where you need to be. It really is just a step-by-step process. And I'm all about those small steps to reach those big rewards and living your best life from the inside out. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you.